Freelance journalist Ahu Ozyurt joins me now live from Istanbul. Ahu, thank you for your time. Now, the quake struck a very wide region of eastern Turkey and also up into northern Syria. Many cities and towns affected. Tell us about how many cities there are, a bit of the topography of the region, how that impacts it, and which ones of the cities fared the worst.
This is a region that's sort of the beginning of the Fertile Crescent in the Mesopotamia region. It's the southeast border of Turkey that covers around 10 cities. Most of them sort of loosely populated, but some of them are pretty densely populated. I think that the most worst affected ones are Malatya, Hatay, which is on the Mediterranean coast, Adıyaman, which is a tinier, smaller city, and Kahramanmaraş, which is the epicenter of the earthquake.
Now, Turkey is no stranger to earthquakes. Of course, we had the devastating quake there in 1999. I lived there for a couple of years. I had an earthquake-ready backpack under my bed, just in case. But how does a government prepare for a disaster like this, given this is such a huge scale of devastation? What is the government currently doing?
I have, my experience as a journalist was first to cover that huge Marmara earthquake in 1999, and this is sort of probably 5 times bigger in scale, and it's closer to the surface. There's the topography and wide range of buildings, different types of buildings that are affected by the whole disaster. It's a huge area, and it's hard to reach every city at this point. The government rushed, and the rescue workers rushed to the bigger cities to see if there was very much big carnage there, just like the Marmara earthquake in 1999. But where we saw biggest damage was in places like Hatay, Kahramanmaraş, and parts of Adıyaman, where pockets of aid and search and rescue came really late. And you see, in the videos, you see high-rise buildings still standing tall, and some 3- or 4-story buildings that are practically collapsed. And it all comes back to the regulation issue of construction code. There have been some changes, and building construction have been made pretty strict in the past 10 years. And the current government worked really hard on this. But still, it's hard for people to build really, sturdy and strong buildings because the costs are too high. And this is an area, sort of a middle to lower class economic circumstances happen, mostly agricultural background. And the cities survive on their own, basically. But this was an earthquake that was sort of long coming. It wasn't expected to be at this magnitude, so close to the surface, and so wide range. We can see the effects of it, and it's almost touching down to what is called as the Dead Sea fault line, going all the way down from Syria to even Israel.
So when you say you were reporting on the earthquake in 1999, which killed more than 17,000 people, of course, one wouldn't want to speculate the kind of death toll of a devastation like this, but we're already, over 2,000, and it's very early days. When you look at the devastation on the scenes and the videos you've been watching, how large of a loss will this likely be in terms of the death toll? Do you think that we can predict something, as high as what we saw in 1999?
Probably close to 20,000 wouldn't be. I mean, I wouldn't want to speculate anything, but at this time, officials confirm that at least 5,000 buildings are basically, all rubble. There are some rescue efforts. 6,000 people have been already rescued, but unfortunately, the area is so wide, and people do predict at least 15,000, in an optimistic estimate, casualties, unfortunately.
Yeah. And obviously, you mentioned the infrastructure there, how vulnerable buildings already were. Given the fact that now this region is experiencing aftershocks, upwards of 10,000 people are injured, hospitals overwhelmed, what kind of situation would we be looking at on the ground in terms of a safe place to house those that have already lost their homes?
Now, it's an interesting geography, and it's an interesting population that they have their own relatives in the villages that they can go up and spend the week and maybe feel safer there. But if we're talking about something like 15 million people, at some point we do need, Turkey will need some outside help. Friends of Turkey will have to come for some humanitarian aid. We're not predicting any big tent cities at this point, but it might be a necessity. There's some medical urgency. We know the Turkish government already has allowed some international aid, search and rescue, and health workers to come help the rescue efforts. And I believe there will be some humanitarian need at this point. And thanks to the CGTN to be a part of our sorrow and send our messages to the world that we do need your help at some point.
And I know you're in Turkey, and a large swathe of the devastation is in eastern Turkey, but of course let's not forget northern Syria. It's been devastatingly impacted by this earthquake too, and of course all the while it's amidst a civil war. There's concern that of course this war-ravaged country will not see the kind of aid that Turkiye is likely to receive or is already getting. How vulnerable is Syria at this point with something so catastrophic?
I think there's enough attention focused on the Syrian tragedy as well. We see European officials, international aid organizations keeping their eye on the Syrian situation at the same time. The trouble there is the zone is divided. Syrian government reports some 500 casualties, where the white helmets that support the opposition groups up in the north report about 300, 400 casualties. So it's not about the numbers, but there is no set authority there that will, sort of gather the aid, provide medical care, provide shelter for kids and women who have already been suffering from the war anyway. So the problem is there's no unity in the authority.
Yeah, and from what I understand, they're already in dire need of food aid, medicine, machinery. So it'll be very important, no doubt, to get more support soon. Now, of course, the international effort is being stepped up. World leaders are pledging support. What kind of a role does the international global effort take in a disaster like this?
We have seen it in the Marmara earthquake in 1999 that teams from Israel, teams from Greece that rushed to the scene and helped us during the search and rescue efforts. And those first 48 hours are crucial for us to get those critical teams from Japan, from China, from India. We're going to see some teams, expert teams, help us to the remote parts of the entire area to go through the search and rescue and maybe provide some help. But after that point, it will be a sort of a recovery effort, buildings, providing shelter, providing care, and even for some psychological aid, help for women and kids and for the disabled. I think that's where the crucial aid is going to come from the international sources.
All right, Ahu, thank you very much for your time. Ahu Ozyurt in Istanbul for us there.